Russia is questioning whether presidential elections should be taken place in Ukraine later this month. The United States says derailing the May 25th elections will lead to more sanctions against Moscow. The Ukrainian government is asking for international observers to monitor the vote. Nathan King joins us now from the newsroom with more.
Mike, that's right. The vote is now less than 3 weeks away, with the country more and more divided. And remember, there are some regions in the south and the east of Ukraine, Donetsk, one of them, that are set to hold referendums this Sunday on independence or autonomy from Kiev. So the window to find any political solution to the crisis is closing fast. In Europe Tuesday, Russia expressing concern that Ukraine may be too unstable to hold a presidential poll.
Those who are protesting in the south and east of the country, they want to be heard and have an equal legitimate voice when it comes to deciding the fate of their own country.
In Washington, the European Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton and her American counterpart argue that Russia is destabilizing Ukraine, and any attempt to disrupt the vote for Ukraine's next president will be met with more sanctions.
It's very hard to reconcile that Russia is now making the argument that Ukraine ought to reduce, not have an election or postpone an election because of the violence that's taking place, but Russia is full, whole hog behind having an election in Syria where there is far worse violence.
The Kiev government, meanwhile, is asking for observers to be dispatched to oversee the May 25th elections. That may be difficult, as observers from the Organization for Cooperation and Security in Europe, or OSCE, were only recently freed after being held hostage by anti-Kiev forces in the east. Russia, however, says that negotiations are now focused on how a new OSCE mission could be dispatched. What mandate they will have and whether local forces will accept them is still an open question. And as diplomacy continues, so do the military maneuvers. Russia has announced plans to enhance its Black Sea fleet at Sevastopol, Crimea, now part of Russia. And the US has called attention to what they call increased Russian air and sea patrols in the Pacific, off the coast of California and Guam. Russia is countering, saying this has nothing to do with the Ukraine crisis, and point out that Russia and the US connect across the Bering Strait in the Pacific. Some American lawmakers are pushing legislation that would allow for direct military assistance from the US to Ukraine. That would include anti-tank and anti-aircraft weaponry. The Obama administration has ruled out direct military assistance. And as the crisis escalates, more international voices outside of Europe are calling for calm. The Chinese Foreign Ministry called for an end of the use of force in Ukraine Tuesday, and Japan called on Russia to accept the result of the forthcoming presidential poll, scheduled, as we've been saying, Mike.
Yeah, Nathan, you were saying the window is closing. How long does the international community have to try and come together over this May 25th vote?
Well, the May 25th vote is there, but as I said earlier, May 11th is when Donetsk and others are going to hold local referendums on independence or autonomy from Kiev. That will create new facts on the ground for the international community to deal with by next week. Meanwhile, all hopes are seeming to be pinned on a meeting on Wednesday between Russian President Vladimir Putin and the head of the OSCE, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the current Swiss president, to try and work some sort of compromise out. But the clock is ticking.